Welcome everybody to this Traceability pre-recorded webinar with Maxion Wheels. My name is Sandy Abraham. I'm the Director of Global Marketing and Brand Management here at 4Cam, and I'm joined by Mohamed Abu Ali, Technologist and IoT Evangelist here at 4Cam, as well as by Isaac Bennett, who is the Global IT Innovation Manager at Maxion Wheels. In the next 30 minutes, you will learn from Maxion Wheels, a Tier-1 automotive supplier, how they have started their smart manufacturing journey with focus on traceability. In the next section, Maxion Wheels will help us understand how they made their decision for an industrial IoT platform and service provider. We're going to be concluding with our seasonal offer to invite everyone to start their smart factory today. Through the interview, we'll be leading Mr. Mohamed Abu Ali. Please take it from here, Mohamed.
Thank you, Sandy, for the opportunity. My name is Mohamed Mo, and I've been with 4Cam for about 10 years, and I've been in the IoT space for over 20 years. It's really my pleasure today to listen and to speak with Isaac Bennett from Maxion Wheels. Really appreciate your time, Isaac. And before Isaac introduces himself and his company and strategy, I'd like to show a simple slide which kind of sets the context of what 4Cam has been doing as an IoT MES player for over 20 years. 4Cam Force is a revolutionary industrial IoT solution that has built-in MES, manufacturing execution system functionality. What we'll hear today and what we'll see from Maxion Wheels is how they plan to utilize 4Cam Force as a bridge between their plant floor layer and their ERP layer, and how they would like to use the connectivity engine and the interoperability of the solution to actually feed data and deliver complete traceability of their parts, okay, from the raw material to the end product. How they can build birth certificates of every wheel that is coming out of their door, how they're able to trace backwards and forwards the wheel all the way from the foundry to the machining and to the end product, and how they can ensure that they meet their customer needs in the automotive industry, which is a very cost-sensitive industry and very stringent in compliance. So keeping this in mind, I'd love for Isaac Bennett to introduce himself, introduce the company, and also say a few words about his traceability need as an automotive Tier 1 supplier. Isaac?
Yeah, thank you, Mo, and thank you, Sandy. It's a pleasure to be here today to talk about this. So yeah, my background is in IT. I spent the last 8 years working with Maxion, and just to give you a little background of where I come from, I actually just worked in the data center taking care of our unified communications systems, video, phone systems, email systems. I had the opportunity a few years back to go manage the IT people in the factories in Europe, and we have a plant in South Africa, and that was a temporary position. And when I came back to the US and sat down with the global IT team, and we had a global strategy IT meeting, I made several comments regarding the fact that us as an IT organization didn't have enough presence on the factory floor, and that was a message I got from the plant management. And I think that was a kind of a turning point for me, realizing that we could add a lot of value as an IT organization to the business. So in that process, our CIO asked me to make a presentation regarding what we could do as IT in the factories, on the factory floor. And that turned into a presentation regarding smart manufacturing, Industry 4.0, and those concepts. So for the last 3 years, I've been working globally in this position, promoting IT and kind of being a liaison between the operation guys on the plant floor and the IT business, and working on concepts and ideas and some projects, how we could add value to as an IT organization to the business. So that is my background in a nutshell of where I've come from and what I'm doing with Maxion Wheels.
Thank you very much, Isaac. Would love if you tell us a little bit about Maxion Wheels and where you are position as a tier 1 supplier in the automotive industry?
Yeah, Maxion Wheels is a pretty old company. The name's changed a few times. Actually, put wheels actually on the Model T, so we have some historic wheels displayed in our facilities. So we've been around for a long time, and more than likely you have at one time in your life driven on some of our wheels and not known it, because we only supplied OEM. Big company, a lot of facilities around the world, and about 24 plants, and we're building more plants this year. So yeah, big company, and we have a big presence, and that's Maxion.
Thank you, Isaac. So why is traceability and analytics important for a company like Maxion, and what steps did you take to, reach a decision on the right solution, knowing that there is a lot of solutions out there in the market?
The one thing that I really, when I go around to the plants, and sometimes I'm doing a lot of education of why the things that I'm doing are important, and I always try to emphasize that the data is kind of the foundation of Industry 4.0, along with connectivity. And I think Maxion is no different than many manufacturing companies in the fact that depending on the process and depending on the plant and where you are in the world, sometimes we collect data and sometimes we don't. A lot of the reasons why we collect data are because it's required, and we don't, even if we did collect the data, we don't know what to do with it. So I think, from conversations with many other companies, they're in very similar situations. And also it depends on where you are in the world, depending on, if you're in one of our facilities in Brazil or Mexico, there isn't so much connectivity on the plant floor. And then there's a lot of automation in our German facilities. So again, and I've had conversations with the people in Germany, and they collect data, but then sometimes they don't know what to do with it. So we've had a lot of discussions on data collection and how we can collect that data, but then collecting the data is just data unless we know what to do with it. So we want to have a contextualized way and a simple way of collecting data, but collecting the right data, and then also being able to use that data to take actions. So as you see here in this slide, we don't want to just collect the data. We want to make meaning out of the data, and then use it in our decision making, and also use it as a business case. So we have been looking for a solution that was agnostic, that could easily be placed in particular areas where we felt the data was important, and we can decide, okay, we feel this data in this section of the plan is important. Let's start collecting it, and then start contextualizing it and seeing what value we can get from that particular data. So yeah, that is the base, the foundation for us, is not only collecting the data, but knowing what to do with the data, and then using that data to take actions.
Thank you, Isaac. So tell us a little bit about your journey. You mentioned you have over 25 plants, maybe at different levels of digital maturity, and you spearheaded the Industry 4.0 journey for Maxion Wheels. What were you looking for? What were your needs, and what were your challenges along your journey, Isaac?
Yeah, we were looking, as I said, we wanted to start with the foundation of knowing and that data can be important if we collect it in the right way. But then also, when I visit a plant and kind of educate them on what we're doing and what Industry 4.0 is, I am not the expert in the plants, not even close. So I really wanted to gather those guys on the plant floor, get them in the same room, and sit down with them and actually see what their problems are from a real world perspective. As I said, we can throw technology in any plant, but we really wanted to focus on particular issues. Many people talk about low-hanging fruit, but we also, not just low-hanging fruit, but something that really adds value. You want to try to find the biggest pain point that we could attack in the simplest way. So yeah, one of our biggest issues, and I think in general in the casting process in aluminum, is the fact that we have a pretty high scrap rate in those facilities. And yeah, we can remelt it, but how much value could we get from that if we could be able to tell when that wheel is going to be a scrap wheel? The sooner the better. So and a couple of years ago, the very first thing that we started discussing was pure traceability from the birth of that wheel from the ingot to all the way through the process. And in aluminum, we were never able to do that in the past, but the cost of technology gets lower and lower. And so we really started taking a deep dive into traceability and how could we track that individual wheel with an individual number, QR code, whatever it may be, through the entire process. And then how can we take that process data and then map it back to the casting process to when that wheel was casted so that we can maybe start predicting when we might have a scrapped wheel. So of course, the conclusion initially was marking the wheel will help, but it's not going to help unless we start capturing that process data, that data down the line. And, we also came into the same conclusion that, hey, if we're capturing that data from those machines, that data could also be used to start doing some actual predictive maintenance on those machines. Yeah, so we started looking at traceability is actually the first thing we started looking at, but then it brought us back to the base, which was the data. We need to start collecting the data, meaningful data, and then we can start tracking that wheel and making the correlations back to the wheel, but also making correlations to some of our machines and seeing if we can do some predictive maintenance on those machines. That was really the core of it. And also, predictive maintenance being something where we, in manufacturing and in general, if a machine's not broke, we're not going to replace it. So we got some old machines that we actually thought, well, hey, we could start connecting some sensors. The cost of sensors is getting lower and lower, and it's no longer cost prohibitive to put a sensor on an old machine and start collecting vibration data, start collecting some pressure, some temperature, and seeing if we can do some good predictive maintenance on those machines, especially in the bottlenecks of the plants, where if that machine breaks, it could cause a big problem and, of course, cost a lot of money.
Thanks, Isaac. Regarding traceability, maybe a question from my side is, knowing that Maxion is a global company, also owned by a Brazilian parent company, have you seen a lot of stringent OEM requirements? Maybe region by region is different, where the OEMs are requesting more and more of traceability, or was the need of trace more on just the quality or the scrap reduction, Isaac?
Initially, it was quality and scrap issue, but we are seeing over the last 2 years those requirements. We're seeing it specifically, we're seeing in our Mexican facility that we're getting those requirements. And then also even in our steel facilities, we're seeing those requirements pop up. So we don't want to just start marking the wheel just because it's required customer. We want to actually, if we're going to buy the equipment to start marking the wheel, we want to see what business value we can get from that. We don't want to spend that money on marking the wheel just and throw it away. So we really think that there is some value in marking those wheels and then connecting, like you said, connecting the data to do predictive quality. That would be one of the biggest things, but it's a mix. So yeah, the requirements coming. For sure. So that is putting some pressure on us.
No, thank you for that. And how did you go about, justifying the business case for marking the wheels, installing the sensors, installing the software, deploying traceability? Knowing your manufacturing environment, this might be quite of a complex project that, consumes time and resources. So how did you and the Maxion team go about, justifying the investment?
Yeah, it's a good question. And if you see on the slide there, where do you start? Where do we start? And that's the concept of starting small and making sure that we have the big picture in mind. And that was part of our journey of finding someone who we could work with, someone who was flexible and willing to start small, connect a few machines. So yeah, we have started the process in a simple way of just connecting a couple machines and seeing if we could show the value from connecting just a couple machines, doing a simple business case and taking that out and saying, okay, if we did this across the plants, if we scaled it, how much money could we save? So yeah, we started with just a couple machines, not a lot of capital, not a lot of expense, an easy way to show the value. We wanted to find someone who was flexible and able to connect and do that quickly, because we don't want to sit around for 6-9 months waiting to see what the results were. We really wanted to find a company who was flexible and willing to quickly connect into those couple machines, even if they were older machines, we have the ability to connect into them, start pulling that data off quickly, and then working together to figure out if and what value we could get. So yeah, the really simple concept of starting small with a couple of machines, having the big picture in mind, and then having the ability to scale those results quickly was a big part of that.
And Isaac, how do you measure success? And the reason I'm asking this is one of the biggest barriers to entry today of organizations, especially in automotive, embarking on an IoT journey or digital transformation is really the business case and the ROI. So how do you measure success? Do you rely on some KPIs or success metrics to measure the success of your trace and the predictive project?
I worked pretty closely in one particular plant with the controller in the plant to figure out really the cost of every process in making that wheel. So I think it's really important that you make sure you get everyone involved across the plant. I think that's one of the things that I talk about quite often is the culture shift. I think a lot of times the old way of doing things, you kind of work in silos within your department. But with Industry 4.0, we really need connectivity, not just with machines, but with departments and with people. Knowing that any process, if we start automating processes, it's going to affect everyone up and down the business line. So we worked really closely with the controller in figuring out, okay, what is the cost per wheel in the process, and what is the real value of a scrap wheel? I mean, once we got that number, it was pretty simple to be able to say, okay, if we were able to save 2%, I mean, the power of 1%, the power of 2% is pretty significant when you start to look at the real value of having to scrap a wheel. We were able to figure that out doing a small pilot project, as I talked about, and then we can scale out the ROI of that and show the value pretty quickly.
I really appreciate you talking about this in a thorough way, because getting buy-in from all sides of the organization is important, from finance, plant management, and so on. Have you had a chance to, in a public way, justify a dollar savings amount per year, for example, or a percent reduction, for example, in scrap? Were those some of the metrics you've used?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, we were shooting for 2% reduction, and normally the scrap rate in the aluminum could at times, depending on, reach 20%. So a 2% reduction is pretty significant for the aluminum casting process.
And would that equate to a kind of a 5-figure magnitude of savings in dollars, or maybe a 6-figure magnitude?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on
the product.
How far you scale the ROI, but yeah, you could definitely hit 6 figures if we go across all of our aluminum facilities. No question. We're talking rather quickly. I mean, I think we said the payback for just one plant could be 6 to 9 months.
So I ask you a quick question on the challenges you face, because obviously you're coming from the IT side of the business and you're entering plants at different levels of culture maturity, I would say. Maybe the Brazilian plant is different than the Ohio plant, different than the German plant. Was that a challenge for you? And maybe on a high level, how did you overcome that from coming in from IT to the OT world?
Yeah, it is a challenge. I think it's always a challenge. And I think from the perspective of an IT guy, I think what was interesting is sometimes, nothing replaces a face-to-face visit, for sure. I think just trying to get on the phone or email, it's virtually impossible to break through sometimes into a plant. And so it's very powerful to walk into a plant, getting the plant manager to buy in, but also getting his guys on the plant floor to buy in is very, very important. And cultural differences definitely. I mean, the making friends for sure helps on doing that. But then also, I would walk into a plant with a simple $30 sensor, and those guys are on the floor making wheels, doing their job, and that's their job, is to make wheels. It's not their job to look at sensors. So that was a really big breakthrough for me, is being able to get those guys. I mean, I would have to say the hardest part is getting them in the room. And once you get them in the room and you're able to show them the technology, especially when you have a $30 sensor in your hand that does 7 different things, you can demonstrate that on an iPhone. I mean, it's the power of the visual is pretty strong. And those guys are interested in it. They just don't have the time to dig into it. So me as an IT guy, naturally, I like the technology and it was fun for me. So it was the hardest part is getting them to sit down in the same room together and talk about it. And of course, afterwards, I always like to take them out for a beer because those plant board guys really appreciate that kind of stuff. So I think that's the biggest obstacle is just getting in front of them face to face and getting them to see the technology. And I think once they see it, and then once they see that you're really truly trying to help the process and help them make their life easier, that's the biggest hurdle.
Isaac, any final remarks or kind of wise words of advice, I would say, to other tier ones or even smaller tier twos who want to embark on this journey? Any advice on how they can start?
I would just go back to the same thing that I discussed a while ago, and that is it is a very big concept. Smart manufacturing industry 4.0. There's a lot of different ideas out there, a lot of different technology out there. I mean, it runs the gamut from virtual reality to augmented reality to 3D printing to. I mean, it can be overwhelming to think of all the different technology that is out there. And I think keeping it simple and starting small, looking for those biggest issues in your plant that you feel would be the most beneficial to tackle, and then thinking that, hey, don't just think as a small proof of value, but a proof of concept, so that you can move fast and think about the entire picture, so that if you do have success and you can build that business case and that you can see the ROI on it, that you can move fast and you can get buy-in from the rest of the company.
Thanks, Isaac, for the advice. Now to the final part of our presentation. Why 4Cam specifically? I'm sure you have done a due diligence process to select the right solution, but if we can talk about the technology for a little bit and why you felt that technology was the best fit for Maxion Wheels, that would be great. Why 4Cam?
There's several reasons, and I think maybe it was Sandy that was saying that 4Cam has been doing this for a long time, been in the business for 20 years. That is one reason, but also the flexibility. Many plants have some of their own software doing, maintenance or doing quality or doing other things in the plant, the scheduling that need to be done. And so it was important for me as an IT guy that we had a company that understood that we're not going to start switching out everything, nor is it cost effective that we start switching out a bunch of different applications that we already have that are running, that are known. So it was important that we had an open API so that the company that we did bring in could tie into those other systems if we wanted to. So that was important. We do run SAP most of the globe, but we also have other different ERPs. And so being able to tie into those ERPs is also a huge benefit. And I think something that's not even on here that I was looking for was a cloud solution, because I don't want to have to buy a lot of IT equipment, CapEx expense to implement a solution. So if we can utilize that cloud infrastructure, and we can get into a model of subscription where we don't have to invest a lot of CapEx in the individual plants to run a system. That was also another big deal. And then, of course, we talked about it, but traceability, making sure we had a company that had experience with traceability is a big deal, because especially in the aluminum plants, it was very important for us to have a solution for traceability, because that is our end goal, especially in the aluminum plants, is we feel like we can get the most value out of predictive quality in those plants.
And Isaac, have you, selected a location to initiate a trace project? And just wondering, why did you select that plant versus the other 25 plus that you have in your area?
We started doing a project in Italy where we're looking at the benefits of predictive quality on the aluminum wheels. So that's where one of the facilities that we started in. And of course, first of all, we started there because it's aluminum and we see the value that we can get out of it. And then second of all, as I discussed before, the relationships I have in that location, I was able to build some strong relationships when I was in Europe in that location. So it was a good plant for me to get in and talk to the plant manager and some of the top engineers in the company about how we can use traceability to benefit them. We are also looking strongly in Europe, in Germany, in the steel plants. Also, I have a good relationship with, and he understands the digital side, and he understands the value he can get and his plants can get from starting to do traceability and track his processes and seeing what he can tie down to predictive quality as well. So yeah, like you said before, I mean, part of that's relationships, and also knowing the particular people and being able to educate them, get them in the room, and get their buy-in.
Isaac Bennett, really want to thank you, for the education you've given us and the great information and insights, on your journey for digital transformation and Industry 4.0. And thanks a lot for your time today. I'd like to hand this off to Sandy Abraham for concluding remarks. Sandy?
Thank you, Isaac, for this illustration of your smart manufacturing journey with focus on traceability. Thank you also, Mohamed, for leading through this interview with Isaac. We now would like to introduce you to our seasonal offer. If you're looking to invest in your plant and start your smart factory today, why don't you consider the Smart Factory Starter Kit, where you connect 3 machines for 3 months. You receive performance reports, training, as well as a guarantee to improve productivity by at least 10%. Further, we invite you to invest in your task force. This is a complimentary IoT workshop for your entire shop floor. This is a one-day digital transformation IoT workshop, a training where you get introduced to an IoT platform, its capabilities, and especially the usefulness for your plant environment. Please invite all of your shop floor workers to this complimentary IoT workshop. And thirdly, invest in your key people. We know you have project teams that you have assigned to run your smart manufacturing project. We offer an IoT certificate course, which is a 3-day course that introduces you to industrial IoT, how to use big data, and how to really configure your system and train the people on your shop floor. This 3-day course includes a certificate, materials, catering, and networking, and we specially offered a second ticket for free. So why wait? Contact us today to find out more, as well as to schedule your appointment. Thank you very much for joining us today. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us at any time. Thank you very much.